What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Total Fight Mike. I have Caleb Schmidt here with me. We're basically previewing we're previewing the UFC Fight Night, and then we're basically reviewing our post-fight analysis for UFC 259. That was a pretty stacked card, so I was actually pretty excited to get your insight on it, since you've actually fought in the cage before. So let's talk about that card from top to bottom. That card was awesome.
It was.
That card was freaking awesome. Let's talk about the main event. As far as the main event goes, I felt like both fighters did a great job.
Agreed.
I honestly felt like both fighters did a phenomenal job at gauging each other's timing. And when it comes to Israel Adesanya moving up in weight to capture the light heavyweight belt against Jan, who was the champion defending it. I thought Israel Adesanya did a really good job, but I thought Jan did a really good job of utilizing his experience and size too.
Neutral. Yeah. Something I really noticed Jan used a lot better in this fight than compared to like other fights. He used his jab a lot better.
Yeah.
I think it surprised Izzy a lot more than I would have expected. Because you'll notice what Izzy likes to do. He likes to pull away from punches. He kind of like leverages his length almost in fights, and Jan was I think he was the longest guy Izzy's fought up to this point. So you'd see every time
I'll have to look at that statistic later.
Yeah, because Jan's 6'2", he has about a 78-inch reach, I believe.
Because Izzy looked taller in the cage, like when they went nose to nose and they were squaring off. Izzy did look a little bit taller. I was like, oh, for 185, he looks pretty big for a guy who's moving up 20 pounds.
Right. Yeah.
But keep on going.
But yeah. So you'd notice every time Izzy would just try and pull on the jab, it would still catch him at the end, and it would still poke him a little bit and connect every single time.
Okay.
Because relative to his other opponents, he was having trouble with that slightly longer reach of Jan, I think, in this fight.
It did look like they were kind of going back and forth a lot of it in the kickboxing range. Izzy did throw a lot of kicks, but Jan was able to come back with power punches that seemed to throw off Izzy a little bit. And to your point, Izzy had his hands down and was moving a lot at the waist quite a bit, trying to avoid those shots. And it looked like he was just barely moving out of the way to take the power away from those shots. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they were still pushing his head back abruptly, but they weren't connecting with power.
Right.
And you could say the same thing for his punches too, because he connected with some punches of his own. Maybe caught him off balance, but didn't necessarily hurt Jan either.
Right.
But I felt like, I mean, if you guys watched the fight, I don't know how you guys feel about it. This is how I felt about it. I felt like Izzy did a really good job with the kicks, but Jan's size and experience just took over, especially with his wrestling in the last couple of rounds. But let's talk about that a little bit. How about Izzy's ground game?
Yeah, something I noticed, at least at 185, when Izzy would get caught on the bottom, he would always be able to make space and keep the scramble going, particularly against even like especially small guys for 85, like Kelvin Gastelum, who's since gotten a little bigger, but was like for the longest time kind of a small guy for 85.
Right.
But you saw a lot of like really scrambly exchanges in their fights versus when Jan got on top of Izzy, he really couldn't do much. He would try and create space, but he just didn't have the leverage, or maybe he was a little tired, didn't have the strength and stamina to like smush or create space and get Jan off of him.
Yeah, throughout the fight, it looked as if they were pretty even as far as the clinching exchanges went, because early on, Jan did take him down, but Izzy was able to get right back up to his feet. He was able to he's really good at actually utilizing the cage to his advantage and to get back up to his feet if he gets taken down. You saw that in his fight with Marvin Vettori, because he'd get taken down. It was a split decision. I don't think it was a split decision. The scoring in that fight was a little bit better than the scoring in this fight, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Right.
But Jan did do a good job with his wrestling, but if you look at Israel Adesanya's takedown defense and his get-up percentage, it's pretty high. And for Jan to be able to hold him down and keep him there, that's pretty impressive. But for Israel to get back up to his feet in the first couple of rounds was pretty good. That was pretty impressive. But the last couple of rounds, I really feel like that really did Adesanya, not in, but I feel like that's what I don't know. I feel like that's what the judges were looking at the most was those takedowns.
Mm-hmm.
And
For
that's,
sure.
I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I do think that's probably what ultimately swayed the fight in Jan's favor because it was close until the grappling really became a factor.
Yeah.
I will say this, one way you might not think that size can maybe weigh on you, when you said Jan was coming back with punch counters when Izzy would kick him oftentimes.
Yeah.
When I think Izzy made some statement about his movement slowing down, and I think that might have been a factor of Jan checking the kicks and Jan subsequently sort of
He did
being
check
a bigger
couple.
man.
He did check a couple.
Mm-hmm.
He did check a couple of those kicks.
Yeah, so I think Jan maybe having thicker bones, Izzy kicking into his checks more often, might have worn on his footwork a little bit, which might have been the reason why Jan was able to get in on him and get the takedowns later on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was. I think it was a 1-2. He was trying to throw a 1-2, and it was almost on the half beat. He basically interrupted the half beat and shot him with a power double.
Right.
And got him down. And it was about maybe 2.5 minutes left in the round, 3 minutes left in the round, and he kept him there the entire round.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I kind of felt like as soon as that sequence of events ended, that Jan was going to win the fight.
Oh yeah.
And he did. So.
Right.
But good for him though, because everybody was kind of wondering how Israel would fare with a bigger guy at light heavyweight and how he would do against a John Jones possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But he took a loss. But I mean, Jan Blachowicz, you got to be really proud of that guy.
For sure.
He's 38 years old and he's a UFC light heavyweight champion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty awesome. But the co-main event, not that one. The women's featherweight championship. Amanda Nunes, the champion, was defending her title against Megan Anderson, the former Invicta FC champion, at 145 pounds. Mm-hmm. It was no contest here.
No.
There was no contest here.
She got run over.
Yeah, she got blown out of the water. Amanda Nunes is the true double champ. And historically speaking, you look at guys like BJ Penn, who won the title at welterweight and then went back down and won it at lightweight, and then guys like Randy Couture, heavyweight and then light heavyweight, George St. Pierre, welterweight
and middleweight.
Frankie Edgar tried quite a few guys have tried the double champ thing or two division champ thing, and it hasn't worked out for many people except for Conor McGregor and Daniel Cormier.
Yep.
And John Jones is going to try that out. Israel Adesanya failed. The only one who's actually doing it legitimately simultaneously is Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, because she's defending in both divisions.
Yeah. And taking on Megan Anderson, basically, there is no ranking. And there is no ranking at 145 pounds. There's not
enough talent.
Exactly. There's not a roster that's talent filled enough. The talent pool isn't deep enough for Amanda Nunes to be challenged at 145 pounds, unless they get girls from.
Was it Invicta, or not even? What's the promotion?
There's Invicta. There's LFA. There's.
I think that's the one I was thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's Ryzen, Legacy Fighting Alliance. I mean, I don't think Bellator is going to absolve their 145-pound division because Cyborg and Julia Budd are, really making it hot over there in Bellator. But Amanda Nunes just absolutely went out there and just threw overhand right after overhand right. She was just touching her with power shots.
Yep.
She didn't even care about.
You could really see Megan's facial expression change after she got hit with the first one.
Yeah.
It's just something you've never experienced in your life.
Yeah.
Like fighting other ladies.
Megan Anderson is a striker. After she got clocked, she tried shooting in for a takedown that was immediately stuffed.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad for Megan Anderson after that. But
yeah, as soon as I saw Megan shooting for a desperation takedown, it's just that that one soundbite that Nate Diaz had, just that playing in my head. Oh, so you're a wrestler now. It's just that's immediately what I thought when I saw that. Oh man.
But she actually finished her off with a mounted triangle.
Yeah.
A mount. Oh wait.
Yeah. A back mounted triangle.
Henry Cejudo. Triple C.
Yeah.
Triple C.
Yeah. Triple.
The champion at 125 pounds, 135 pounds, and
120 something in the Olympics.
Yeah, he was a gold medalist in the Olympics. So Henry Cejudo. But here's the thing. I really don't. This is just. I really don't believe he won that fight against DJ. I think that was a very close fight. That was a very close fight.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That was another bad decision. Let's talk about bad decisions before we get back to the 10-8 rounds. I don't know who was judging for Israel Adesanya and Jan Blachowicz, but those 10-8 rounds were ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think that made a whole ton of sense.
Because it wasn't that. If you were going to give Israel Adesanya 9 on a round, you might as well give Jan. I'm sorry. If you were going to give Israel Adesanya 8 on a round, you might as well give Jan 9 because that's how closely contested they were, I feel like, in my opinion, until Jan decided to take it to the ground. But
yeah, because what rounds was it that where the judges were scoring 10-8s? Was it
I think
mid rounds or later rounds or?
I don't remember which ones it was. I think it was the 3rd and 4th round.
Oh, yeah, that's
or
suspicious.
was it the 4th and 5th round?
I could maybe see an argument for the 5th because Jan did finish like mounted and grounded pounding, albeit it wasn't at like a high pace or whatever.
Right.
But
those,
if it's outside of there, I'd be really suspicious about that, or not suspicious, but I'd really question that, like the decision making of the judges on that.
Yeah, that was absolutely one of those things where the numbers absolutely did not tell the story of the fight. But back to Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson, she actually finished her with a mounted inverted triangle. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, you don't see that unless somebody.
If you've been in that position before, it sucks.
For sure.
It sucks. You can't breathe, and you're panicking because you can't see anything.
Yep, you're getting hit with 2 submissions at once. You're getting choked, and you're getting your arm stretched out the other direction.
But congratulations to Amanda Nunes. She's your true 2-division champion. She leaves with a 145-pound belt. How about Piotr Jan and Aljamain Sterling for the 135-pound championship? Unfortunately, that didn't go. Didn't go fair. It was a great fight up until it wasn't.
Oh yeah,
it was a phenomenal fight. First of all, Aljamain Sterling was throwing a lot of punches. He was throwing a lot of unorthodox strikes that he usually doesn't throw. Usually from the outside, he's more of a kicker, and then he likes to shoot all the way in and engage in the clinch and get you to hand fight, so you can shoot in for a single or a double leg, very much kind of like Khabib.
Right.
But Khabib utilizes more boxing to initiate his takedowns rather than a naked kicking game, I guess you could say.
Right.
But I mean, if you think about how Aljamain Sterling came out in that round, at least in the opening rounds, that was a pretty good game plan.
Oh yeah, because Piotr Jan really takes a little while to get started. He likes to download data for a long time, so if you just kind of like keep pressing him, he might just stay shelled up the whole fight, which is what you kind of saw in the first round or two. I
noticed that a lot. He was parrying a lot in the Aldo fight when he won the title, the vacant title against Jose Aldo. But it was eventually in the 4th round where Aljamain Sterling got tagged with a knee when he was when he had his own knee down, and he was considered a downed opponent or a grounded opponent with his 3 points down on the floor, or 3 points down on the floor. The rules change from state to state.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll be 3 points down. Sometimes they'll require 4 points down. There's a controversy about the corner telling Jan to throw the knee. Here's the thing, and you have to understand the rules.
I agree.
Especially at that level. Like if you're the champion, you should understand the rules. Nothing against Piotr Jan, but he should know that that was a down opponent and that you shouldn't have been able to throw that knee.
Right.
But And then you see on the internet everybody talking about how Aljamain Sterling, how negatively they're
Right, calling him like a paper champion or whatever.
That's unfair because that was a devastating knee.
Oh yeah, that's connected absolutely clean.
That was a hard knee.
There was no like it skimming or whatever. That probably would have nearly put him out.
I know in the amateur circuit, when you guys are standing, no matter what, you can't knee to the head at all.
Nope.
At all. At least in the state of Illinois. I don't know how it is for any other state, but in the state of Illinois, for the amateur mixed martial arts circuit, the rules states that you cannot knee to the head. To the head of your opponent at all. In the amateur circuit. So if you have a Muay Thai plum on somebody, those knees have to go to the body. Can you throw knees to the body when your opponent's on the ground?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Just so long as you just keep it below the neck or at or below the neck, I believe.
Okay. But yeah, that was a great card. But what else was on the card was Islam Makhachev and Drew Dober.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
That was phenomenal. Islam Makhachev was one of those guys that comes from that same Sambo cloth as Khabib Nurmagomedov. His only loss in the UFC is to Adriana Martins, who's no longer in the UFC anymore. Unfortunately, he was famous for getting head kick KO'd by Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But he returned the favor with head kicking Islam Makhachev and giving him his only loss.
Wow, okay.
Since then, Islam Makhachev has been on a 6-fight winning streak. And Drew Dober was hot himself. Let me see. Drew Dober is a phenomenal striker.
Yeah, he knocked out Alexander Hernandez, and then was it Nasrat Haqparast before that?
Yeah, and Nasrat Haqparast was on a 3-fight winning streak, I believe, and he has some phenomenal hands himself. But not Jake Matthews, Drew Dober, who was also on this card, he got arm triangled, unfortunately. Yep. But Drew Dober. He was coming in hot. He was on a 3-fight winning streak. Islam Makhachev just basically used his wrestling and nullified all of his strikes. And just basically took him down and just tired him out. And was just able to suffocate and nullify his game entirely and just put on a wrestling clinic.
Yeah, I mean, Islam's so high level. What do you call it? When he finished Drew Dober, I think he didn't even step over for the arm triangle, which is impressive.
He didn't.
Pretty impressive.
I don't think he threw very little ground and pound. It was all position over submission. I think he was just consistently getting him to wrestle and getting his limbs to tire out. But he did finish him with an arm triangle. To finish him with an arm triangle from half guard, the way that he did it, it's pretty hard. You have to have a phenomenal squeeze in order to pull off something like that. But that was a phenomenal performance by Islam Makhachev, and Drew Dober's tough.
Oh, undoubtedly.
Drew Dober is absolutely no joke. And the final. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get the mask out of the way. But the actual featured bout of the pay-per-view was Alexander Rakic and Thiago Santos. At 205 pounds, Alexander Rakic, his only loss in the UFC was to Volkan Ozdemir. I had to think of his name for a second there.
And arguably, I think wasn't that one of those fights where it was a little bit controversial, scoring-wise?
Yeah. I felt like Volkan Ozdemir won that fight, but Alexander Rakic, he's a huge light heavyweight.
Oh, yeah, dude. He looks like he walks around. He might be even in there at like 240, upper 230s.
Yeah. Actually scored this fight a draw because I felt that both guys were doing just enough to give each other enough to
say they weren't losing.
Right. Kind of, it just felt like they were trying to find the perfect opening to land on one another. I thought Thiago Santos would get the edge with the leg kicks, but, I mean, no. I guess the judges didn't see it that way.
Yeah. Something I thought would really play into it that I don't think I remember happening that did happen, or didn't happen, I should say. I thought Rakic was going to go to the grappling a lot more because prior to this...
that's right.
Yeah, because prior to this, Thiago Santos took an L to, Glover Teixeira, who's a smothering grappler, and that's how he won that fight.
He's a black belt on the ground, and he's got a phenomenal arm triangle. He's got a phenomenal top game, too.
And what sort of plays into that more, the reason I thought Rakic would go to it against Santos is because Santos had a problem with it his last fight, and Rakic put on a similar performance against Anthony Schmidt. He basically beat him up in the striking range with leg kicks and longer strikes, and then he took him down and then just absolutely mauled him.
I remember after the leg kicks, Anthony Schmidt hopped for the back almost emergently.
Oh, yeah.
I remember he went to the back almost for dear life and was trying to sneak in hooks and try and sneak in the RNC. But Rakic was having none of that. He was able to shake him off and win the rest of the fight. But there was someone on the card that I really wanted to talk about. There's this guy, Serbian kickboxer by the name of Uros Medic, and he was a phenomenal kickboxer. He was on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, and I forget who he fought, but the way he won, he just made it look very
easy.
It just easy's. It looked as if he'd been there before. It looked as if I don't know what it is, but this guy has it. Uros Medic has one-punch knockout power. He's got phenomenal kicks. He can fight at both stances. He actually used to fight at 185.
Yeah.
And he's fighting at 155 pounds. That's lightweight. As far as MMA standards are concerned. That's junior middleweight in boxing standards at 154 pounds. That's nuts.
That's a nuts body transformation.
He's tall. He's a tall, long guy. He fought a guy named Alan Cruz, who he won his Contender Series fight as well, but his debut in the UFC, unfortunately, he got finished in the first round. And in this fight, that exactly happened to him again because Uros Medic just he landed a right hand and he landed a power hook and it dropped Alan Cruz. And then Alan Cruz was doing what he could to try and scramble and get back to his feet and defend himself on the ground. But you could say that that was a very prolonged stoppage. That it could have been it could have ended way sooner than it did. But keep an eye on Uros Medic because he's a phenomenal kickboxer, very cerebral kickboxer. He's undefeated as an amateur. He was undefeated as a kickboxer, I believe, and he's 7-0 as an MMA fighter. So
something to look out for sure.
Uros Medic, the Doctor Medic, I guess Medic, his last name, Uros the Doctor Medic. I remember when he won his fight on the Contender Series. He was looking at the camera and he was like, "Nurse!" I was like, "Oh man, he's one of these guys." And he was like, "Nurse!" He was pointing at his opponent. I was like, "Oh man, I guess he really is the doctor, huh?"
Oh man.
that was Uros Medic. Keep an eye out on that guy. But this Saturday, somebody from Chicago is stepping up from not our hometown. But somebody from Illinois, Chicago, Illinois, is stepping up. Top 13 welterweight, Bilal Muhammad, is stepping up to fight top 3 welterweight, Leon Edwards. Let's just get right into it because this is a phenomenal fight. This is a phenomenal matchup, and this is a big step up in competition for Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad's awesome. He's a powerhouse. I remember watching his fights. He was a former LFA welterweight champion. I remember just watching him come forward like a bulldozer, just throwing flying knees like it was nothing, just pushing guys up against the cage. Phenomenal wrestling, power in both hands, power in his kicks too. His only loss, I believe, one of his only losses in the UFC is to top 10 Vicente Luque, and that was a knockout in the first round. But ever since then, he's cleaned up all of that. Yeah. I think he's working at Valley Flow Striking in northern Chicago or south downtown Chicago. I don't know where, but that guy that trains there is a phenomenal striking coach. He was actually able to work with Yair Rodriguez in the past, and he's actually worked with Macy Barber in her past fight for her previous camp. If you look at Bilal Muhammad, his fight IQ has shot up quite a bit. He's still learning and improving every time you see him. But Leon Edwards is a monster, dude.
For sure.
Leon Edwards is a beast. He's on an 8-fight winning streak. He's a very cerebral striker, and he's not just a striker. He's a complete mixed martial artist. He can do it all. One of his only losses, his last loss was years ago against Kamaru Usman, and ever since then he's been chomping at the bit to try and get that rematch or get a title shot. His last fight was in 2019, I believe, against Rafael dos Anjos, the former UFC lightweight champion. But this fight's going to be insane. So I want to get your opinion on this fight because I know you're really excited for this fight too. You've actually got the opportunity to grapple with Bilal Muhammad.
I did, and I got smushed. Yeah, the dude has giant hands. If you actually see him in real life, it's a very nice. It's a notable quality. But what do you call it? Yeah, Edwards and Bilal Muhammad. Edwards is sort of more of sort of like a straight shooting sort of sniper type in terms of his striking ability. He likes to punch and clutch sometimes and then break from the clinch with elbows.
I believe that's his favorite technique.
Oh yes.
That and the body kick from southpaw position.
Yep. And in terms of his grappling, yeah, like you said, it's not bad either. He's a complete mixed martial artist. I've heard Luke Thomas talk about this. I'd have to take a look at it a little bit more, but Luke Thomas likes to call him master of like half positions, like in terms of like the grappling. I was just going to talk about that. Keep on. Right,
I'm also a big fan of that guy, Luke Thomas. Yeah. That guy is awesome. But keep on going, please.
But yeah, he'll stay in certain positions people would normally tell you to like pass from, but he'll deal damage there because it's sort of more conducive to the MMA meta. So like staying in half guard and landing shots, or
the MMA philosophy as far as MMA meta is concerned. For those who are listening, they don't know what meta means. Right. The MMA ideology. But please keep on going.
Right. Or if somebody starts turning their back, he'll stick with the legs around two legs around one of his opponent's leg, sort of in like a half back position, and then sort of either strike from there, or if it's like the end of a round, he'll look for a submission or something like that.
I was actually going to talk about how specifically when he likes to stay all the way in or all the way out. When he's in medium position is when he'll like to look for the over-under position. When you look to break away is when he likes to throw that sneaky elbow, because that's how he got Gunnar Nelson down quite a bit. And he actually tagged Rafael dos. He actually opened up a cut on Rafael. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Rafael dos Anjos, had a nasty cut over his
right eye.
It was his right eye? Okay.
Yeah, because I know dos Anjos is a southpaw, so I think that's the side that was more forward.
Okay, so he cut him open pretty good. He cut both guys open. He's really good at cutting his opponents open. It's actually pretty interesting to see that Leon Edwards in the over-under position. You would imagine that he likes to push his opponents up against the cage, but he doesn't.
Right.
And he doesn't. It's not that he doesn't like to, because he's advantageous up against the cage. He likes utilizing the Muay Thai plum up against the cage. If you've noticed in his last couple fights. But and at distance, in the middle of the cage when there's space, he loves utilizing that over-under. So, which is interesting because I think Bilal Muhammad comes from a wrestling background.
I'm not too familiar, but I know he does mix in takedowns with sort of like a high volume sort of striking.
I've seen him. I've seen him dump a nasty double.
Oh yeah,
a really nasty double on guys on the regional circuit, and the cameras just go, boom. So this is going to be power versus pace and smarts. Because I think Leon Edwards, he's a very cerebral fighter.
Okay.
I'm not saying that Bilal Muhammad isn't a smart fighter. You have to be you have to have some sort of phenomenal fight intelligence in order to be at that level. And he's top 15.
Something you bring up about the matchup, I think we might disagree on a little bit. Yes, Bilal has power, but I've noticed in his last few fights, he really likes to drive up the pace too.
Yeah.
And really keep his opponents just completely overwhelmed.
Keep him guessing.
He fought one of the Lima brothers in his last
Diego
fight.
Lima.
Right.
I remember that fight.
And Lima, maybe it's more emphasized against an opponent like Lima because Lima doesn't usually throw in high volume himself. He usually likes to come over with like
Power shots.
Yeah, power shots. I think it's a check left hook and a right low kick, similar to his brother.
Yeah, his brother's real good at that with that technique. He actually caught Paul Daly in Bellator with that check left hook quite a bit.
Right. So, something I think. So you maybe the pace was more pronounced in that fight. So that's actually kind of something I think might play into the sort of the outcome of this fight actually more than you might think. Bilal, with that sort of high pace, I think he might be able to maybe overwhelm Leon Edwards a little bit because, like you said, you might have noticed Edwards likes to keep sort of like a patient, sort of medium pace to a fight.
Yeah, he
generally
does
speaking.
Yeah, he likes to keep a low pace. Mm-hmm. I did notice that in a lot of his fights. Mm-hmm. He likes to slow guys down quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Chad Mendes did that to Clay Guida, another Illinois fighter.
Right.
But I remember with another phenomenal pace.
Right.
But
yeah.
Clay Guida was he loves to keep a high pace, but something that Chad Mendes was able to do was slow Clay Guida down and eventually find the perfect shot. Mm-hmm. I'm not so sure if Leon Edwards is going to be able to do that against Bilal Muhammad, but it's interesting that you bring that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think that's something people might be looking at a little bit less compared to other aspects of this fight. Because a lot of people think Edwards is just going to completely run over Bilal, but this might be one of those factors that might play to the contrary.
Here's what I think is going to happen. Leon Edwards has been off for a very long time, and Bilal Muhammad's been active. He fought Lyman Good as soon as the UFC was clamoring for events during the pandemic, and then he made it back-to-back affair with Diego Lima. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be very interesting. Dominic Cruz likes to say that ring rust isn't real.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
it depends on the individual.
It does depend on the individual. This is going to be a phenomenal fight. If Bilal Muhammad wins this, oh man, he's knocking on the door for a title shot. Maybe one or two more wins, and he's there.
Right.
And that's awesome because he's been in the UFC for a little bit now.
Mm-hmm.
Leon Edwards, if he wins this fight, he needs a title shot because he's on an 8-fight winning streak. He's been, like I said, he's been chomping at the bit for a title shot. He's been well deserving of a rematch with Jorge Masvidal or Kamaru Usman. Or excuse, I say rematch. He got into a scuffle with Jorge Masvidal in the back when they both fought in England. Unfortunately, I say rematch. Forgive me.
Unofficial.
Please don't kill me, Leon Edwards or Jorge Masvidal. But that was a fun. With phenomenal matchups like that, if Bilal Muhammad wins, I mean, he can interrupt and throw a wrench in the gears of all of that, kind of like Justin Gaethje did with Tony Ferguson. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But, man, that's just very exciting. I can't wait for that fight. Let's see who else is on that card. Give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. So Misha Serkinov's fighting Ryan Spann. Misha Serkinov's a longtime UFC light heavyweight. Ryan Spann is coming off of a loss to Johnny Walker. Both guys have losses to Johnny Walker. So Danny Ige coming off of a loss to Calvin Kattar after his first main event. Mm-hmm. Angela Hill is in need of a win because she's been on the wrong end of a couple of bad decisions that I felt like she won personally. Mm-hmm. Manel Cape, I know I'm talking about the guys that are coming off losses, but if you look at this card, this is very much a redemption fight night card,
right?
Basically. Mm-hmm. Manel Cape is one of those guys that actually came from Japan's banner Rizin, or Rizin, however you pronounce it. Mm-hmm. He's fought Kyoji Horiguchi and Kai Asakura a couple of times. Mm-hmm. The former Rizin bantamweight champion. It's a quick turnaround for him.
Oh yeah.
Because he fought quite recently, an event or two ago, a fight night or two ago. Yeah,
I forget who he fought, but I believe I don't think he took a lot of damage in the fight. But...
He didn't. It was a close fight. It was a very close fight. I actually felt like he won that fight.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think part of what a lot of people were criticizing for that kind of played into that was really low output in the fight.
Yeah, he had his hands down quite a bit, and he was moving, doing the shoulder roll thing quite a bit.
Just taunting instead of countering.
Yeah, but the opener for this is Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart. Now, Darren Stewart's one of those middleweights that comes from the UK, comes from England. He's a very good middleweight. He had a very good fight with Kevin Holland, and Kevin Holland is he's on a really good streak right now. He's getting ready to fight Derek Brunson very soon.
Yes.
But Eric Anders is a former light heavyweight. He's been up and down, let's just say.
Yeah, he flip-flops between the weight classes.
If you remember, his first big test was against Lyoto Machida. Unfortunately, he lost that fight in the main event. That was at middleweight. He went up to light heavyweight. He had some wins. He had some losses. I think his loss to Khalil Roundtree made him go back down to middleweight. I think he's on. I think he won his last performance, but Darren Stewart, like I said, coming off of a close fight against Kevin Holland. That fight the end of that fight was very much reminiscent of Jan Blachowicz and Israel Adesanya, because Darren Stewart actually had Kevin Holland in some deep trouble because he had him stacked basically, and it was a stacking position that was Kevin Holland was trying to utilize the scissor sweep.
Oh right, yeah.
But that Darren Stewart had him stacked in a position where he just kept
had no space to execute.
And he just kept creating. Well, he kept pushing him into the fence and just pushing into the fence with his hips while utilizing hammer fists to kind of nullify his defense on the ground. And that was basically it. Not basically it, but that was the end of the fight. The judges ended up giving it to Kevin Holland, but it was a close fight by both guys. So
undoubtedly, yeah.
That UFC Fight Night is going to be a sleeper card. It's a sleeper card, so tune in. Do you have any odds and ends?
Odds and ends? No, not really.
Do you have anything to add? Anything not weird, but anything in the combat sports world?
No. There are rumors circulating around that TFC, you might have mentioned it.
Yes,
last
Total
podcast.
Fight Challenge. Total Fight Challenge hopefully will be coming back in August. Hopefully at the Cicero Stadium in Cicero, Illinois.
Right.
Hopefully.
And hopefully I'll be fighting on that card. So.
Hopefully we'll have quite a few guys fighting. All right. Hopefully we'll have quite a few guys fighting from this team on that card. But in May, Canelo Alvarez is going to be fighting Billy Joe Saunders, and that's a fight that I cannot wait for, because if you look at Canelo Alvarez at 160, 168, even 175 pounds, he's one of the best, if not the best right now. His only loss is to Floyd Mayweather. He's slated to fight Billy Joe Saunders, who's the WBO super middleweight champion at 168 pounds. He's 30-0, southpaw, defensive fighter. If you look at his knockout percentage, it's about 47%, 48%. But getting closer and closer to the fight, I'm just getting more and more excited for that fight. Because if you look at the Charlo brothers, and if you look at Caleb Plant and Billy Joe Saunders, I feel like Billy Joe Saunders, even David Benavidez, I think that Billy Joe Saunders has the has the style to give Canelo the most problems, specifically because he's a southpaw and because he's a tricky mover.
Right. I might agree with you on that front. I watched one of Billy Joe Saunders' fights prior to this podcast, and something I noticed he likes to do is he likes to stay at, like, he has a few different weapons from a few different ranges. So from a long range, he has like a good 1-2. Mid-range, mid-range to close range, he'll sort of do a lot of counter uppercutting. And sometimes he'll do a lot of punch and clutching. So punching into the clinch and then going into the clinch. I think that's something against a really sort of aggressive counterpuncher like Canelo, who likes to come forward and likes to counter, that could really nullify Canelo's offense if he chooses to punch and clutch more against Canelo. and really emphasize that aspect of his game that has worked well for him so far.
Right. He's a really good mover. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. The thing is that Canelo's a really good mover himself. He's not just a power puncher.
Right.
It just so happens that he has power in his hands, but he's a very elusive boxer himself. This isn't a puncher versus boxer matchup. This is very much a boxer versus boxer matchup. It's just that Canelo has a higher knockout, a higher finishing rate than Billy Joe Saunders does. But another thing that I wanted to plug real quick, the super flyweights at 115 pounds for boxing, there's a guy, he's one of the best in the world, by the name of Juan Francisco Estrada. And he's taken on a guy who... So Juan Francisco Estrada's got 41 wins, 28 by knockout. He's only got 3 losses. They're all by decision. He's avenged 2 of those losses, except for 1. He's fighting a guy by the name of Ramon Gonzalez, and it's going to be for the unified super flyweight title. So the WBC, the ring, and the WBA super flyweight titles. That's going to be a very interesting fight. Juan Francisco Estrada is one of those boxers that loves to utilize punches and bunches. Again, we've talked about being on the wrong end of some bad decisions and funky scorecards on MMA. It's even worse in the sport of boxing. And we got my producer over here shaking his head going,
yeah. If you even think about like the Canelo and Triple G fights, a lot of people were like tearing their hair out over that one, particularly.
For those of you who are hardcore boxing fans, the Pernell Whitaker and Julio Cesar Chavez decision comes to mind. But Ramon Gonzalez and Juan Francisco Estrada, that's going to be a phenomenal fight. This Saturday, March 13th, alongside the UFC Fight Night, Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this episode of Total Fight Mike. Caleb, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I will see you guys in the sequel. Bye, everybody.